The Last of Us Season 2 Episode 4 was just released yesterday. I believe it was called Day 1, which kind of falls in line with the game itself. Definitely the best episode of Season 2, by a long shot. I'm not really good at, delving into stuff like this without somehow dipping into spoilers, especially since I do have a lot of knowledge of the game itself, and, a lot of my reviews come from comparisons to the game versus how the show plays out. So yeah, might as well just put like a bit of text here just to say there's definitely going to be some sort of spoilers in this review. Definitely that link to the actual game itself. So yeah, this episode definitely covers quite a hefty portion of what you would experience if you were playing the game. Obviously, based off the episode name itself, Day 1, it covers a lot of what actually occurs in the first day of Ellie and Dina's journey in Seattle from the game. Of all the intense moments, however, in this episode, it seems like one of my favourite bits might have actually been the inclusion of an optional scene from the game, which involves Ellie finding a guitar and deciding to do her own cover of Take On Me, whilst Dina sits there and listens to her. Because yeah, if you've played the games, that section actually comes during like a semi-open world portion of the game, where you can definitely miss it if you're really just focusing on the objective, which is finding some oil, essentially, so you can open a gate to progress to the next scene. Also, I guess I'm just going to point out one thing that I've noticed, and been thinking about it for the last 2 episodes. Where is Jordan? If you haven't played the game, there is a character by the name of Jordan who is essentially a part of the group that Abby and the rest are a part of, and he more or less is Ellie's first victim in the game. There's no Jordan in the show. So yeah, if you've seen like episode 2 of the show, you know that when Ellie came into the room where Joel was, she got sort of tackled to the ground and she like cut one of them across the face. In the game, that's Joel. That's not Joel. That's Jordan, who she cuts across the face. And in the show, she cuts one dude across the face, and that same dude then walks up to Joel's corpse afterwards and calls him a pendejo and spits on him. But it's not Jordan who does that in the game, that's Manny who does that. So I remember when I saw that, I was like, wait, that's Manny? Shit, I didn't know that was Manny. And yeah, we're now 4 episodes in. We've got 3 episodes left of season 1, and there's no Jordan. I guess yeah, he wasn't like a big character, but just the fact that he's missing definitely has caught my attention. I guess the reason why it's caught my attention is because his death at the hands of Ellie sort of is the starting point for all the violence and all the shit that's about to go down in The Last of Us Part 2. I guess it's like the point that makes you go, alright, this is getting real. Like, Ellie's journey for revenge is getting real now. She's going to make sure that these people fucking suffer. But anyways, pushing aside the lack of Jordan in the show, this episode also introduced us to Isaac, who, again, this is the next, a bit of a deviation from the game, because even though Isaac is in the game, he doesn't appear in the game until much later. Like, way past the halfway point does he even make an appearance, whereas here, he's showing up in Day 1, Seattle, from Ellie's perspective, specifically, which, the little bit bizarre, though. I guess the reason why they're doing it is because they've only got 7 episodes to play with. I don't know why they didn't just do the entirety of the game in one season. I really don't get it, but that's their choice. So yeah, Isaac's here. He's the leader of the WLF, and he's definitely a brutal guy who I think like even Abby and that are terrified of him. But the one thing I do want to point out about Isaac in this show is that he's actually played by the same actor who played him in the game. That's Jeffrey Wright. And Jeffrey is just as amazing in the show as he was in the game. It's kind of the same as in season 1. I don't remember her name, but the actress who played Marlene was the exact same girl who played Marlene in the game. I like it when they do stuff like that, like they're really respecting the source material and some of the actors/actresses. So yeah, they did that with Jeffrey in this one with Isaac, and I really do appreciate that because he was perfect as Isaac in the game, and it's really good to see him back. This episode also introduced us to the Seraphites, or I wouldn't say introduced because they were sort of in the last episode, but if you haven't played the game, you might not have even known who they were, whereas this episode really delves into them and really makes it clear who they are. So the Seraphites are another group that are essentially at war with the WLF in The Last of Us, and Ellie and Dina come across them quite a few times in the game. They are definitely the most brutal bunch of the game, or even they're going to be in the show as well. But yeah, I'm assuming you probably have already seen the episode. I hope so, because what I'm about to say is essentially a bit of a spoiler as to what the Seraphites do. But there is a scene involving the radio tower, which is a small segment of the game as well, with Dina and Ellie. They're in there searching for, the WLF, and they come across a room with a bunch of bodies hanging from their necks with their intestines just hanging out. They've been gutted. And that's a thing that the Seraphites do to their enemies in the game. They hang you, and while you're still alive, they get a knife or a sickle and just slice your gut open. It's something about is it a god? I don't know if it's a god, but some particular entity that they worship. They believe that they're, sacrificing you to this entity. But yeah, it was good to see the Seraphites. It was good to see, their sort of story getting explored in this episode. The torture scene between Isaac and a Seraphite, which was very glossed over in the game, actually got quite a hefty extension in this episode, and we got to see just how brutal Isaac really is. Also, if you're like me and you were once a bit of a Nickelodeon fan growing up, you might have noticed a cheeky little cameo from a certain someone from a really old show. I'll just say it, Drake and Josh. If you know Drake and Josh, you might have been lucky enough to recognize Josh Peck making a cheeky little cameo in this episode. Then this episode also delves into the subway scene from the game, which involved Ellie and Dina. In the game, Ellie's mask breaks and, Dina assumes that she's going to get infected, so she tries to take her mask off to, sort of be like, here, we'll share, so that way you don't get infected. And because Ellie's immune, she decides to just go, fuck it. I'm immune. I'm just going to tell you out front that I'm immune. And because the show still hasn't introduced spores after all this time, they had to do that a bit differently. So in this one, Dina almost gets bitten and Ellie puts her arm in the way and takes the bite, which I guess makes sense. That's pretty much realistically the only way you can do something like this in a show that's yet to introduce spores. Please, why have you not introduced spores yet? And Dina's reaction in the show was pretty well done. They're in the theater and Ellie's barricaded it. She turns around and Dina's just there with her gun pointed at her, tears in her eyes. Basically, she, as far as she's concerned, Ellie is about to turn, and at that point Ellie has to just go, oh, fuck it, I'm infected, okay? I'm infected. No, please don't shoot. I'm immune. She says she's immune. And, she tries to prove by basically, telling Dina every little action she's about to do. She's like, I'm going to walk over there. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. I'm going to sleep. And when I wake up, I'm going to still be me. And you can still have your gun trained on me the whole time. And then she wakes up. She's still fine. Dina's still got her gun on her. And that's it. So, I guess I do kind of appreciate how the show did it. It's the best way the show could have done it, given the lack of spores and whatnot. There is one thing about this episode that kind of threw me off. I won't say I hated it, but it just threw me off because it was so different compared to the game. And it was what happens after that scene between Dina and Ellie. So essentially, after Ellie wakes up, obviously Dina's still got a gun trained on her. And this is the part where Dina decides to break the news to Ellie that she's pregnant, which was a scene in the game. It was done really well in the game. It's a bit hard to say the same for the show because it is so awkwardly done to the point where after revealing that she's pregnant, the two decide to have sex. Which, I'm not saying it just doesn't make sense for them to have had sex because it happens in the game. It's that it happens at a different point in the game. It happens before Joel's death. It happens at a time that actually, sort of made sense. Their world had yet to be turned upside down and gone to shit. So it kind of made sense. Whereas in the show, they do it after Dina reveals that she's pregnant, and it's like, what? Really? Now? I remember like the scene was over, the screen cut to black, and I was just like sort of head moving around. I was just like confused at what I'd just seen. To me, it felt like the writers got halfway through writing the script for this season, and someone chirped in and went, "Mate, we forgot the sex scene. What do we do?" And then my next, I guess, complaint about the episode is I'm still not overly fond of Ellie's reaction to Dina's pregnancy compared to the game. Again, my problem is that I've played the game and I am comparing it way too harshly to the game. But some of my, I guess, opinions of the show versus the game kind of warranted because, you know, I don't like that in the show after they, you know, do their thing, they sort of wake up the next morning and Ellie and Dina are just like laughing and joking, and Ellie's like, "I'm gonna be a dad." And they're just laughing and kissing and stuff. In the game, essentially, Dina reveals that she's pregnant, and Ellie's shocked, upset. Dina decides to make a quick joke and go, "Don't worry, it's not yours." But, you know, this pisses off Ellie because they're already in Seattle. There's really no way for them to turn back. And, you know, she starts getting a bit upset with Dina, asking why. She's only just been told now. Dina's like, "Well, I didn't know. I wasn't, you know, I didn't want to really be a burden, yada yada." And then Ellie just bluntly goes, "Well, you're a burden now, aren't you?" So yeah, I definitely preferred how the game handled it compared to the show, because I feel like the game did a good job of basically showing, oh, Ellie is really deep into this revenge quest to the point where this reveal just really fucks with her head, because this is now a major, you know, obstacle for her to overcome. Whereas in the show, it's just kind of like, you know, I'm immune. Well, hi, immune. I'm pregnant. Let's have sex. Also, I guess I'm just going to point it out. The fact that, you know, when it cuts to the aftermath of it, both of them are still fully clothed. Did they get dressed after doing all that and then go to sleep? Or did they last like 30 seconds and then Dina was just like,
"Just gonna roll over there. You know what?"
But yeah, aside from my minor criticisms of how the show handled that particular moment versus how the game handled it, you know, the introduction of Isaac was fantastic, as well as the introduction of the Seraphites. I call them Seraphites, even though they're typically referred to as Scars in the show. So really, it's up to you guys whether you want to call them Seraphites or Scars. I call them Seraphites. The, you know, scene with Ellie singing the cover of "Take on Me" was really, really well done, and the subway scene was very short but very intense, very well done. So yeah, overall this was a phenomenal episode. I've seen the teaser for episode 5, and oh boy, that's not a bad oh boy, that's a good oh boy, because it looks like some shit is going down in episode 5. Going back to my mention of the lack of spores, I actually think episode 5 might be finally introducing us to spores, which would be hectic, but also I think it's going to confuse the shit out of, you know, viewers who haven't played the game. Like, what the fuck is this? Now, if you have played the game like I have and you have seen the trailer, I would say myself I am kind of skeptical, because there was, like, judging by the dialogue, there was a lady mentioning like the hospital and saying like how quiet it is down there, not even a rat down there. And, you know, the final shot is Ellie down in a in a section of the hospital that looks really, really messed up, which looks very similar to a certain scene from the game involving Abby. If you play the game, you know what scene I'm talking about. As much as I would love, I fucking really want to see this scene already adapted, I kind of hope it doesn't, because it's one of Abby's biggest points in the game, and I don't think it would be very good if they took that away from her and gave it to Ellie instead. But yeah, The Last of Us Season 2, Episode 4, Day 1, definitely the best episode in Season 2 so far. Like, I give it a solid 9 out of 10. It was just really well paced, had plenty of excitement in it. Again, the ending was a little bit weird, but, you know, it's not the worst thing ever. It's just, I don't hate it. Again, it's just different to how the game did it, but maybe it's about time that I separated the game from the show so I could actually be a bit more lenient on what the show does. But yeah, there's the review. It was an amazing episode.